Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, December 18th, 2022, coming at you live from Floored Media in Rockville Center. Another big show coming up for you tonight. Just myself, Sean Cuthbert, and Chris Botta talking New York Islanders. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy Hanukkah to everybody who celebrates. Really nice to be here, Sean.
Yes, no question about it. Crazy that we're already at the holidays.
Yeah.
My God, time just effing flies. Want to remind everybody that we are proud to be presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. New location at 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. And, of course, UBS Arena at Belmont. Also proud to be sponsored by Lost Farmer Brewing Company at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Big viewing party coming up there on Thursday, this Thursday, December 22nd, Islanders versus Rangers. Live Hockey Night in New York pregame show at 6 p.m. Puck drops at 7. Live sound. Great beer specials. It's going to be a great night. Come on down. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have our pals from Rangers, Ed, coming down to hang out with us. Weird situation there, Chris. Everybody that hosts that show is named Ed.
Look at that.
Coach Ed,
I look forward
Little
to
Ed,
look for it. No,
Big Ed.
We should let the
Cousin
Islander
Ed.
fans know, though, it's a segment with them, right? Or
Yeah. We're only going to get
wouldn't
a
want
few
all these
minutes.
Islander fans coming.
Yeah.
It was gonna be, okay.
Yeah, we'll let them talk about their team a little
Right.
while.
We'll give them 15 minutes, which is about what the Rangers will do in the game.
Exactly. Chris, I love it. Fantastic. So, yes, come on down. We're going to have a great time at Lost Farmer on Thursday night. Going to be a great time. And, of course, happy to be sponsored by our brand new sponsor, Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game for you. From old favorites to the hottest new releases and special December events, Dungeons & Dragons Holiday Week Camp for grades 4 to 7, and for adults, our New Year's Eve Board Game Bash. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, and Game Night Live communities are welcoming for all. Located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more info. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game.
You know how many times when I did that spot for my old podcast, I would say Main Street BoardGameCafe.com as opposed to Main ST. So I salute you for getting that right.
I appreciate, because this is live, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't get to do this over. I mean, I kind of do, but I really don't.
I mess that up so much. As I mentioned last week, though, it is a great place. So if that is your thing, folks, whether you're no matter what, just go check out that place in Huntington. You will find a home there. I wish there were more places like it.
Well, I can't wait to get over there. Hopefully they franchise. But Huntington, a great town. So many things going on over there. And yeah, it's a wonderful spot. I spoke to Neil, the owner, and he's doing great things over there.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So Chris, with the pleasantries out of the way, obviously, we'll do a quick little recap of what happened this week. The Islanders started off a road trip in Boston. They go 1-1-1 for the last 3 games. 4-3 shootout loss in Boston. So, to me, that's a tie.
You had mentioned on our last show they need to lose better. They hadn't lost a game that way yet, right? They won 3 in overtime. They had no extra points. And sure enough, they did it the very next game.
There it is. So, do we accept that loss? I mean,
no. This was the big positive, of course, is Saturday in Las Vegas, and we're not going to skip over that. I thought that Boston game was very winnable. I thought Boston got out of there with 2 points on a night where even their own fans and the reporters who cover them say that this was a game, and we talked about this on Sunday with their travel schedule, that they were just not into. So, you definitely feel like the Islanders gave up a point there. I was thinking if you bet on if you are an Islander bettor this season, despite the fact that they are now like 4 or 5 games over 500, you've probably lost money because this season, game to game, has been incredibly unpredictable. And this week is another example of this.
Yeah, when you write up the 1-1-1 record from this week, like, did anybody look at it and say, okay, shootout loss to Boston, regulation loss to Arizona, and a regulation win against Vegas, right? Like, I don't think anybody did, but that's exactly what happens. They lose 5-4 in Arizona at Mullet Arena, which was kind of an interesting circumstance. I was looking at Kevin Kurz and Ethan Sears and Stefan Rosner and Andrew Gross, like all their comments, all their commentary on the arena and what was going on there, the low ceiling and the college atmosphere. I mean, look, you obviously have a firsthand degree in arena oddities, right, with the New York Islanders. So when you see that, and with the league going above and beyond, right, for the Arizona Coyotes to survive and do this temporary situation there, I mean, what do you make of that whole situation?
It's strange, and I don't agree with it, and it brings the revenue down. And oh, by the way, I said that once a show, at least for all the fans who said, I don't mean just Islander fans or fans of the show, and thank you for that, who say, oh, but don't worry about the salary cap because it's going up big next year, and it never seems to. And this week we learned, ironically, the same week, around the same time the Islanders are playing in Arizona, we learned that the salary cap next year is projected now, after talk of it going up $3 to $4 million, which is a big difference, is only going up around $1 million. That was based on comments that Gary Bettman made. So, listen, it's silly. I'm happy for the fans of Arizona. I get it. Gary Bettman has dug in time and time again to try to make that work. And if this is what it's got to be, then so be it. But let's not try to pretend that it's some sort of great thing. You're making the most of it. By the way, the Arizona fans are not snapping up these few tickets that are available. And the proof of that is every game, not just the Islander game, but every time you see a game there, ESPN's had a couple. The visiting team, Boston, had more than so. You might want to be a little concerned that the fans of Arizona, and there are good fans there, don't get me wrong, but the fans of Arizona, and boy, did we go on a tangent in this segment. I have another question for you. The fans of Arizona did not snap up all those tickets, and cynically you could say, well, maybe some bought them as an investment and are putting them out on StubHub and taking advantage. Maybe some Islander fans paid a lot to go. That I don't know. But Arizona didn't have a home ice advantage when they played in a regular size arena, and now they don't when they're in this small arena, and it's even more pronounced. I mean, the Islander fans showed up.
And Chris, this is why I have to ask this question. The league let the Thrashers move from Atlanta to Winnipeg, fine, right? They let the Whalers move from Connecticut to Carolina. Why is the league so adamant about keeping the Coyotes in Arizona? What is that about?
That's a great question. I'd have to look up. I don't recall anybody asking Gary Bettman or Bill Deli that specifically. Like, what is it that about this market that has them so dug in? I get it. It's It's an American market. It's not a top market in terms of Nielsen ratings and all that kind of stuff. But I think they still believe in the potential there. But none of it makes sense. The only other thing that I could compare it to, and obviously you're talking about the Coliseum and oddities we got there in Barclays, but when the Ottawa Senators started in the league, they played in the Ottawa 67's rink, which is a small rink under the stadium of the Canadian Football League team, and we'd go in there, and it was 6,000 people. One side of the arena was just like 10 rows. It was really intimate. It was unique. You knew there was an end goal for a new franchise, but what you see with leagues, including leagues I've worked for, is that they have all these kind of hard and fast rules. You need to get an expansion team. You need this, that, and the other thing. To do this, you need this, but there's always exceptions. And when it comes to the Coyotes, Gary Bettman and the Board of Governors who vote for this kind of thing, they've enabled this because they must believe in it somewhere along the line.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's got to be it because, I mean, there's markets chomping at the bit. I mean, I think Houston's kind of like waiting for a team, and obviously Quebec. I mean, you look at logistics and stuff. We don't have to worry about that right now. But it seems like there's cities that are waiting for a team, but the Islanders are just the league is just so steadfast in keeping the Arizona Coyotes around, and that's great for their fans. But it doesn't make sense to me with everything that's going on. No. But before we break, just what do you make of this 1-1-1 week for the New York Islanders? Right, the shootout loss to Boston. They drop a weird one in Arizona. A couple of lucky goals for the Coyotes off of Islander skates and bodies and whatnot. Probably not their best game. Maybe they took their foot off the gas after they went up 2-0, and then maybe they kind of learned their lesson going into Vegas. Right, they said, okay, we dropped a game we shouldn't have to the Coyotes, and let's take care of business against Vegas, and they get that win, and so now it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, the Arizona game was distressing and concerning and kind of made you wonder. I'll speak for myself about this team, about Lane Lambert. How could that have gone so bad for a long stretch there? Right. I thought when they had the delay, after Arizona took the lead, and then they had the delay at the Islanders bench with the door that took forever, it seemed like it would kill Arizona's momentum and favor the Islanders, and I thought the Islanders still might win, and they didn't. So it was a bad night. If there aren't many more like them, you're okay with it. Here's the positive about the Islanders, where I could end this week, is that when it comes to that Vegas win, and certainly Varlamov was a big part of that, but when it comes to this Vegas win, the one thing about this team this year, which is a big, big positive, is that every time it looks like they're going on the downside, that, boy, if they don't win this game, we could be looking at a slide. If they don't win this game, it makes you wonder about this team. If they don't win this game, they're going to be 6 points out of a playoff berth by the end of the week. I will say just about every time in this season, and we're still only 30 games in or so, they have won that game. So I know Eichel didn't play, Theodore didn't play, but still a good sign that they came out of that with both points. So that is a huge positive to end this week, in my opinion.
I think that's a great point to make, and if you want to even put some more rose-colored glasses over it, they took 3 out of 4 points out of Boston and Vegas, right? And that's pretty good.
None out of Arizona.
0.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were putting the glasses on there. Yeah.
Now, all right, and before we go to break,
but that's it. That's hockey, and again, long season, and we're still learning, and they are exactly where we feel they're going to be, which is in the playoff race.
How much flack do you think Anthony Beauvillier got for getting that errant stick in the face of, I forget the opposing player, but that's really when that game went off the rails, right? They were up 2-0, they were coasting. Beauvillier gets an errant, just skating. You know, it wasn't even a play. He just happened to be loose with his stick. It ends up in a guy's face. It goes to a penalty. They score a late goal to make it 2-1. And from there on out, I mean, Arizona kind of took that game over. That's how they end up winning. I mean, does Lane Lambert kind of does he even have a talk with Anthony Beauvillier over that?
I don't think he does because one, unfortunate, not intentional. And it just seems when it comes to Beauvillier, there's at times a crisis of confidence, and things like this happen when you're fighting it. So he has these moments, he gets the overtime goal, and you think, wow, it feels like maybe it's always going to be this when it comes to Beauvillier. He's a good player. If he winds up not on the Islanders, I think he'll have a good long career in this league. But it always feels like him. There's a few guys here who are always in the middle of the setbacks.
Indeed. Well, again, folks, 1-1-1 so far for this road trip. Not bad. Shootout loss to Boston. Toss up, right? I mean, skills competition. They dropped the regulation game to Arizona, and they get a big win in Vegas. 1-1-1. They're still in the playoff mix. We're going to talk more about it, but we're going to take a break. So thank you so much for tuning in to Hockey Night New York here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers. We'll be right back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it. Heat was lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. this fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for all of Long Island's hockey fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the newly built UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Whether you're at the stable for a hockey game, concert, or a comedy show, you can find Stable Shaker by can and draft around the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewery, the future of Long Island craft beer.
Your sponsors, ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and or listening to Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY, and of course, your favorite podcast providers. So, little special segment coming up here tonight, 50th anniversary. So Chris and I, this is actually the brainchild of Chris Botta over here. Favorite Islander roster. Now, keep in mind, this is not top Islander roster all time. This is not the best all-time Islander roster. This is just favorites. So we're going to start position by position here. Chris, I'm going to toss it to you. We're going to go center, wings, defense, goaltending. Let's start with the center. Chris Botta, favorite all-time New York Islanders roster.
And again, just for the criterion, like this is as a fan favorite. I guess there's a couple of cases where you might see on my list that I'll also add a personal thought from having to get to work with them or get to know them. But this is purely a favoritism. At center,
let's hear it.
I agree with what Howie Rose said. He's the number one New York Islander of all time. He's the guy who made everything happen. I almost feel like he gets lost, which is hard to believe because of the legendary Mike Bossy and Dennis Potvin or whatever. But for center, for me, forever a favorite, Brian Trottier.
Has to be, and I completely understand that. And so I have no dynasty guys on my roster because,
well, of course, yeah,
it wouldn't make sense.
And by the way, if you did, that would be okay. Like I think there's some young. It's like there are people who might say Michael Jordan's their favorite player or Babe Ruth is an idol, but they didn't see them play.
But I feel like Chris, if I picked anybody from the dynasty roster, I would have to sit here and say, well, I went back and rolled the tape. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I watched the games.
That makes sense.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the guys that I actually grew up watching. So it's a very specific time period. And that basically starts from late 80s, early 90s, going on to now. So Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Clark Gillies, none of those guys are on my list. Dennis Potvin, as great as they are, as much as we worship those guys, they're not on my list.
Totally
so
understand.
With all that out of the way, my center is actually current New York Islander Matt Barzal.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, I mean...
Because even LaFontaine is after you, right? It's just right on the cusp.
Listen, he's my all-time favorite New York Islander, but I was a kid when I watched him. He was the guy who got me into this team, and we're going to do honorable mentions.
Oh, that's true. I should be careful there.
Right, and that's okay. But Matt Barzal, look, basically, I started with Robert Reichel.
I actually thought he might be your pick.
Alexei Yashin, right, going in, and then you have Mike Peck as the second line center, right, and then you go beyond that, and you're talking. I mean, what, Mike York?
Right.
Right.
And then there's the John Tavares issue, which was really interesting. I actually saw a couple of fans on Twitter send me their list, and one or two had John, and I get it. I certainly have no problem with it, and he would be on that list if he'd probably be second to Brian, or he'd be fine if he was still on the team.
Well, you know what's funny
Which
about
is a
that?
big if.
We've sat here on this show multiple times, right? And you have guys like myself kind of defending the Fisherman era and defending the jerseys and defending the uniforms and whatnot. And there's going to be kids coming up, probably entering their 20s if they haven't already, saying, you know what, John Tavares is my favorite Islander because I grew up with him. He was my number one guy back then, as crazy as that sounds to most Islander fans now. But, I mean, it's kind of the same, situation. Like, he was a, top pick in 2009. He was obviously a savior for the franchise for a little while.
And it's funny to think that he was an Islander longer than Patty LaFontaine was.
That's
Pierre
wild,
Turgeon,
yeah.
Things like that. Maybe there'll come a point that Tavares will be like the Fisherman, right? Where
that's what I'm saying.
After
Yes.
letting 25 years go by,
I think
he'll
that's
come and get an unbelievable ovation at the next arena.
yes, at the next arena. Yes, no question about it. And Turgeon's a great mention too. If not for how dynamic Matt Barzell is, he probably would have been my guy. But I had to go with Barzell. So we'll take it to the wings. Chris, who do you got?
It's funny. I was thinking we spend so much time on centers. At this point, we should just do one position a week and milk this until March.
Right.
My
Tune in
wings.
next week.
My wings. Okay, so we start with my favorite all-time Islander, period, and that's the man whose nose is in the frame of every big goal, just about it, probably in Islanders history. You've heard me say that before. Glad to see that his number got retired recently. Hell of a guy, incredible player. He didn't just look like he was working hard. He was working harder than anybody, and that's John Tonelli, and from the Dynasty era. And then my other pick, there's so many I could choose from. We don't have enough honorable mentions on here. I might not be alone in this, but I just love to watch him play. I love how much he means to a certain era of Islander fans, and that, of course, is Zygmunt Palffy.
There we go. Okay, that might be the one guy we agree on. There might be an agreement for us on D. I'm curious to see where that goes. But to segue from that, Ziggy Palffy's my right winger. Again, grew up in that era. That's why I appreciate that time. But he really was the most dynamic, wing that they've had in my lifetime, post-Dynasty. It's just such a shame that a guy who could score 48 goals for the New York Islanders didn't do it with a cast around him that could have went to the playoffs and beyond, But just a wonderful player. And my left wing, actually, Derek King, number 27.
Hey, you're not going to get any arguments from me. He was. There's so many of them, but he was just on that list of good people, and another guy who scored a lot.
Yes, but again, I looked down the list and I was trying to figure it out, and I was like, you know what? There's really it's a position that they kind of had a lot of struggles with. And look, I love Anders Lee. He's the captain now, and he's a great left winger. But for me, a great big part of this list that we're compiling here was just guys that kind of helped me really appreciate the Islanders and my fandom, my love for the team, and 27 was just that guy for me on the left side.
I love it. I would not have predicted that he would have been on one of the lists, but I love the choice nevertheless. Let's go with your defenders. And by the way, the reason why I just said two wings, I didn't want to get caught up in the social media and saying he was a left wing more than a right. So
That's fair.
I just said two wings. So
okay.
Who are your D there, Sean?
So my defense on the left side.
And again, I didn't do that.
That's fine. I did, and that's okay. I went a little more in depth.
Okay.
On the left side, Darius Kasparaitis on the show recently, but I mean, this guy was absolutely fantastic. We've talked about him already. We've talked to him already. But if you needed a guy on the back end that was going to lift you up, and not I can't even say not necessarily, not from the offensive standpoint of things. A guy who literally got you out of your seat for being a defenseman. Darius Kasparaitis, the art of the hip check is gone. However, there is a Romanov now on the team now is kind of bringing that back, and I love that. But, I mean, all you have to do is if you can't watch the full games, watch those highlights from the Islanders-Penguins series in the 1993, division finals, right?
Well, certainly against Pittsburgh, but really the entire playoffs.
Oh, no question about it. But the way he played Mario Lemieux in that series, I mean, if you're going to fall in love with a player, I mean, that was the time to do it. But it was a joy watching him, and also a joy just having him on the show. So Darius Kasparaitis for me, without question. And this is the guy I think could be a possibility, but probably not given the era that you come from. But I've told you this before, but Adrian Aucoin. I actually wore his number playing college hockey for Hofstra, number 3, in honor of him because he was such a great player, and I loved what he brought to the game for the Islanders, and he was part of that big resurgence for the 2001-2002 team, where again a guy like me who's past the dynasty, that was a team that I feel like a lot of fans my age fell in love with at the time, because that was the post Ziggy Palffy fisherman team for us. You know, they get Chris Osgood off of waivers, and you know, they get Pekka, they get Yashin.
One weekend.
And I feel like the Aucoin deal was the one that everybody kind of forgets about. I think that was the Friday night of the draft
Friday
weekend.
Night. Correct. Yeah.
There you go. And Matthew Biron, I think, went the other way. See, I remember all this.
Yeah.
But it was a significant time for somebody like me, and his top pairing with Kenny Janssen was just a lot of fun to watch. I mean, the guy, Laviolette used to play him nearly 30 minutes every night, and he was fantastic.
25 and Aucoin 30.
He had a bomb from the point. He was a leader in the locker room, and Adrian Aucoin, he was a big guy for me. So there's my defense pairing.
Great picks. A lot of fans picked the early ones that I got on Twitter. Kasparaitis across the board.
Yeah,
like, more than Denny Potvin was picked. More than
way.
And not surprising. And Aucoin, made me think about it when you talked about him joining that group. So much when you're the hardest thing to do in sports is be a bad team for a long time and turn it around, no matter who you add to your lineup. So they, getting Pekka and Yashin, of course, solidifies you 1-2 at center.
Right.
Getting Osgood helps a lot. Snowy was great in goal too. So it was a good team. But an underrated part of that, too, is Adrian Aucoin coming over, where he'd done very well in Vancouver, then went to Tampa. He didn't know what he was getting in the Islanders. I don't think the Islanders, Mike Milbury and Ken Morrow and others, certainly were fans, and there was a reason why they pulled the trigger. But that wasn't like a no-brainer trade. This guy's going to – but from the moment Adrian showed up on Long Island, class personified, solid player. One of the readers and viewers wrote, his picks were Denny Potvin and Adrian Aucoin. I said, man, in their prime, those two guys playing together on the power play would have been fun to watch. So I love your choices, and I will say we don't have any redundancies on the defense.
Okay, that's all right.
So for my older era pick, and I went back and forth, and I knew what my other pick was going to be, but on the dynasty pick, I could have gone so many ways, even earlier, including Jerry Hart and Bert Marshall and all those players like that. But in the end, I just kind of at the last second when I finalized my list, I was like, I'm giving Ken Morrow's my guy.
Wow.
And so, yes, been working for the team forever, had the privilege to be around them for a long time. Gentle, giant, humblest guy. Is humblest a word? The most humble guy that you'd ever want to meet. Mild-mannered, sweet, quiet, unassuming. But also, his story is just continues to be fascinating for me. He's on... Like I think about it, little Steven Van Zandt is in the East Street Band with Springsteen, and he's on The Sopranos. Like, those are two culturally, whether you like them or not. Okay, right? It kind of legitimately
something to say.
two legitimately like iconic things that he's part of. Right? Ken Morrow goes from the even for a hockey team, maybe the most popular, most beloved American sports team, the 1980
Yes.
U.S. Olympic team. He goes from that moment and then joins this team. And I know he was good at Bowling Green, and I know he was, highly sought after, although they got him in a middle draft round. And he comes, and from the moment he gets there, he's basically taking a regular shift. Butchie's part of the club too. They make the trade, and he goes from winning. Even just saying it out loud, I get it. It's 42 years later, but people understand this. He won. He was on the Miracle on Ice team, and then won 4 straight Stanley Cups.
Who's had a more magical hockey career than Ken Morrow?
And was a big part of it too. I'm not saying, I know the purists will say don't mention his name in the same breath as Larry Robinson, but he kind of did that stay at home role. Larry was maybe a little bit better with the puck. Funny thing is, Ken also had these big goals and
Yes,
overtime against LA, overtime against the Rangers. So after thinking about Denny Potvin, who I adore, of course, and Langevin and so many players, I was like, Ken Morrow, man, he's the silent man, but I'm not going to forget him. So, Kenny, you're my pick. And then the other one happens to be another Kenny Janssen.
Love it.
When we got him,
Agent's
when
partner.
the Islanders got him in the trade and I was with the team, Milbury said, Chris, watch this guy play. And Mike, being a former defenseman, and then I've heard this from other people after we got him, wait till you see this guy play, but you really got to watch him. And I'm not, as you know, not a player, but I took their words and I made a point of it. And, man, the things that he did, protecting the puck, the little plays, I know sometimes we overrate that. He was such a beautiful, beautiful player to watch. It's heartbreaking, and sometimes we forget that he missed a lot of time because of concussions, and he still persevered through that. A unique guy who went home and left the NHL probably even still earlier than he could have hung on for more years and a lot more money, played on the Swedish Olympic team. Another gentleman, uniquely not an Adonis in terms of his physicality or shape, yet he would make fun of me and my colleagues every time it looked like we put on an extra 5 pounds, which then got me mad so that's like a little personal.
Well, that's
thing.
even cool to hear because he was such a mild-mannered, quiet guy.
That's what made it sting.
That's
He'd
awesome.
be like, hey, CB, and then I would I would try my best to. That's like one of the things I think about him, and again also. Props to Ledecky and Malkin and the spirit of the fact that everybody's welcome back.
Yes.
Including, lesser players. Literally everybody is.
Yes.
T-Show talked about it on our show.
Right.
It's so nice to, when they've had one or two of these, and I've seen the clips, the guys who've actually gotten me a little choked up when I see them, where they're just walking by, are the guys who aren't the Dynasty members. So Kenny Janssen and Ken Morrow are my D picks.
Those are phenomenal picks, and look, I mean, time may have fuzzed my memory of this, but if I do remember right, when the Islanders clinched their playoff berth in 2002 against the Washington Capitals, I think that Howie Rose mentioned Kenny Janssen first.
Yeah.
When it came to that.
Yeah, they're up 5-1 against Washington, and then of course, us being the Islanders, it goes to 5-4 in the third period.
Of course. Yes.
Kenny had gotten a big goal, and Newsday's back page, or I think it was a Saturday night game, so it was the Sunday, had a picture of Kenny just up against the glass, enjoying it with the fans. That night after that game, Milbury had a little get-together at his house. I think he invited 2 players, and Kenny was one of them. And it just kind of gives you an idea of how much he meant to everybody around there.
And if there's anything I'm going to give Mike Milbury credit for, it is that defensive core that he built for that team. Janssen, Aucoin, Hammerlick. And even later, even though it didn't pan out as well as people thought, but I thought the trade was great at the time, Yanni Nienema.
Yes.
That top four
that's a heck of a four.
Yes.
By the way, when you mentioned about guys coming over, and I always said there wasn't we didn't have a Kirk Muller situation, I remembered like a few days later, and we'll just do another show, really we should make a note of it, but when we traded for Roman Hammerlick, and it was reported, okay, I'm on the draft floor. We'll come back and revisit this because we've already gone 20 minutes longer. We planned on it to say.
Sure.
But I'm on the draft floor. Oh, all right, we get Hammerlick. And then somebody comes up to me. Hammerlick's not happy. He already did an interview. By the end of the day, I don't know if Roman was happy, but he then pretended to be. We turned him around, got him on the phone with a bunch of people, and he wound up being really good for us. And by the way, I ran into him in Adventureland like a year ago. Adventureland, yes,
What?
the one in Farmingdale.
Really?
So he's still
At the
like,
scary house?
He's back here all the time too.
Really?
It's one. We've talked about this before. Guys love Long Island,
Right?
Including
Right.
guys who didn't. He came from Edmonton, I believe, in that trade.
Yeah. Grabowski, I think, went the
Something
other
like-
way, if I remember right. Maybe not.
No,
No.
not
that
right
was
now.
for
You got your
Marc-Andre
names wrong.
Andre Bergeron? Yeah.
no,
Sorry.
you got-
Yeah.
yeah.
Forgive me.
Anyway, but guys love it here, and yes, he still comes back to Long Island all the time. Who's
That's
your goalie?
excellent. Eric Brewer, I think, went the other way.
You're
For
gonna
this
say
year.
Eric
Maybe
Brewer was
I'm
your
wrong.
goalie?
I don't- It doesn't matter.
It
It
might have
doesn't
been,
matter.
bro. Who's
All
your goalie?
Actually, Ilya Sorokin. And I did a backup too. Yarrow Halak.
Okay, you can't do a backup. You could do an honorable mention,
Okay.
but you only have 3 slots for that. These
Fair
are
enough.
hard and fast rules.
Were they? So
Great choice.
yeah, I went with Sorokin. I deliberated over the goaltending a little bit, but I mean he is the probably the best goalie that I've been able to watch for the New York Islanders, even in a short span of time, and a lot of love for Robin Lehner and for even Semyon Varlamov and Glenn Healy. And I mean, God, has any team, maybe other than the Philadelphia Flyers, gone through as many goaltenders as the New York Islanders have over the past 20, 30 years? I mean, I can rattle them off, and it's sick to think about. Like, after the dynasty years, all those goalies, and there's names that have long been forgotten. But Ilya Sorokin, I mean, this is a very obscure comparison I'm making right now, but like, kind of like a Jason DeGrom for the New York Islanders, are like just one of the best in the business right now, and he's done it in a short span of time. He comes over from the KHL, but everybody's talking Vezina for this guy, and he's young enough. He's in his mid-20s, and he's a guy that can really lead this team, from the most important position, in the game. So Ilya Sorokin for me is my goaltender.
Great choice. I love it. My concern about Sorokin, and I get it, Varlamov is great. I just when he didn't start against Boston, I'm just like, I think we need to treat Sorokin like he's the number one goalie, because
You've been
confidence
pushing this
is
all year.
because Sorokin is confidence is such a big part of it, and like he starts that game, and then he doesn't start the next game, and you're like, oh, well, then that means, and like, who's the number one here? So, but that's not what this segment is supposed to be about. So Billy Smith, who happened to be the goalie for the Dynasty,
Right.
of course, Battling Billy, legend, another show into itself altogether, is my choice. That's an easy one. Unique guy, was a goalie coach after I joined the team, and boy, as competitive as they come. And you see how few shutouts, regular season shutouts he has. Like Sorokin's just about past him, and but what a great player. Run the clock. So we're gonna take 45 seconds, and we're gonna name as many goalies as we can post Smitty.
All right,
Ready?
go.
So go. I'm gonna Fitzpatrick, Rudy, Hackett, Wade Flaherty, Garth Snow,
Hackett.
Chris Osgood,
Yes.
Ficho. Now I got the ones who are friends with us, right? Ficho,
Kevin Poole.
Jamie McLennan. Okay, I'm going to count on you for the later era.
Dwayne Rollison, Marty
You
Biron.
go from here. You take it from here.
Yarrow Halak, Thomas Grice, Robin Lehner,
Glenn Healy. I think I forgot.
Glenn Healy. You said Fitzpatrick. Oh, God. Jan Denis.
Very good. Yeah.
Who else do we got here? Oh, come on. Same era, actually. Jan Denis was
Tom Draper.
Marcel Cosino.
10 seconds left.
Felix Potvin.
Good. Tommy Salo. Do we name him yet?
Tommy Salo. Tommy Soderstrom.
The funny thing is we're going to miss
Eric
a
Ficho.
major guy.
Yeah.
Ron Hextall.
Ron Hextall.
Okay,
Oh my
good
God.
enough. We
But
named,
we haven't even covered them
we
all.
named 30 in 45 seconds, and there's a lot more to go. So Wade
Unbelievable.
Flaherty, the man.
Wade Flaherty.
Yeah. Hey, we better go to our honorable mention.
Wade
for our last
Dublowitz.
5 minutes, and we might have to cancel a segment here. I'll give you my honorable mention
Okay.
picks since you laid off the goalies and the D. Kind of one from each era.
Okay.
Bobby Nystrom.
Okay.
God bless you. Bobby and I'll say for the 50th time, never let me down after I got to know him. And as a player, an all-time favorite. Not just the goal, not just the 900 games, the fights, the 30 goals or so a season, in on every other big play along with Tonelli. Incredible guy, incredible for our community too, as the Rangers have Graves and different teams, Adam Graves and different teams. Robbie Nystrom, Paolo Fontaine certainly is in that category as well. So my 3 picks, Bob Nystrom, Pierre Turgeon. I got to say this about Pierre. Might have alluded to this last time. I was kind of intimidated by Pierre when we first got him in the trade. So handsome, so elegant, so talented that you just and with the French accent. And I'm telling you, this is an embarrassing bias, but I think part of me was kind of like, what's up with this guy, And we got along fine, whatever. What I come to realize, and I did before he was gone, of course, and I've talked to him since, not for a bit now, but what I realized like all these years later, and it's like 30 years later, is that he actually happens to be like the sweetest person on the face of the earth. Like it was almost like a misread for me. I couldn't believe how kind and gracious and graceful and everything that he was. And so he makes my list, and a phenomenal player with one of the single best seasons in Islander history, a top 5 single best season in Islander. And then for my third one, there were so many I could have gone. I was thinking of all personal favorites, but then to bring this back, I went with Matthew Barzal because as a current fan who's engaged in this season more than ever of recent, because I'm doing the show with you and I'm a fan for life. Like, he's the guy who brings me out of my seat, sometimes makes me flop back into my seat, sometimes too. But I think he's a tremendous player. I've said that many times on the show. And so I was like, how could I not have Barzal on this list? So it was nice that you had him on yours.
Yeah, just such a special player. Yeah. I mean, you've seen twice as many guys play for this team that I have, but he's a guy who's just, I've never seen anybody play the game the way he does. The way he works his edges, the way he controls the puck, the way he circles around the zone, and the confidence that he plays with, and the way he circles his zone, looks for that perfect pass. It doesn't always work out, but super special. So I'm glad you mentioned him as well. And look, I could have given you 20 honorable mentions.
Same here.
But I did narrow it down. So I'm a guy who, really appreciates the workhorses for this team, the guys who don't get all the accolades. And I'm not a big jersey guy, but I do the jersey thing, the T-shirt with the name on the back. And there's a few guys that I have, and the first guy that came to mind when I had to do an honorable mention was Franz Nielsen, number 51. And I don't think he got all the credit he deserved when he was with the team. He was, or just in the league, just league wide. Any pundits who were watching the game, and when they had a little bit of success in those Tavares teams and stuff, when they had the resurgence and stuff in 2016, 15, whatever it was, and he was a huge part of that. And I loved his game. Obviously, huge in the shootout. They could use him now, to be perfectly honest with you. But Franz Nielsen was a favorite of mine, and we already talked about Pat LaFontaine. Again, he was the guy that solidified my fandom for the New York Islanders, number 16.
Your second honorable mention?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm gonna give like a. Oh, sorry, Chris. I didn't know we were so strict here with the rules. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the viewers and the listeners are going to be so upset that I added an extra guy.
I would have picked more.
All right, fair enough. So I'll go with one guy.
No.
Number 53, Casey Cizikas.
Oh, great choice.
Love his game.
Sure.
And again, it goes back to that, unsung hero. He's a guy who's tailor-made for the NHL playoffs. Now, obviously, he gets you through a season. I mean, I've said this, whether it was Tony Stabile sitting next to me, Christian Arnold sitting next to me, for the years that I've done this show, Casey Cizikas probably would have been a third-line center on any other team in the NHL. But he solidified himself as the fourth-line center.
That's a really good point.
On the New York Islanders. And, you have the whole best fourth line in hockey talk with him and Martin and Clutterbuck. But Casey Cizikas is one of my favorite all-time Islanders without question. Could I make him my center in this pick? No, of course not. But as an honorable mention, just a tremendous player, busts his ass every damn shift that he's out there, and he could score the odd goal. And I'm just a huge, huge fan of the worth ethic and the way he plays the game. So,
please tell me who your other people were.
Nikolai Kulemin.
Oh, okay. It's funny. I kind of missed out on the Grabowski Kulemin era, and that I wasn't as close to it. So, but I get it.
I own 3 or 4 T-shirts with Islander names on my back. Franz Nielsen, Casey Cizikas, and Nikolai Kulemin, because it's the game that they bring. Yeah, it's the workhorse, unsung hero game that they bring. So there you have it.
Well, I hope the fans can continue to share either on the Hockey Night in New York Twitter or our Twitter, and we'll go over those lists, and maybe we'll come back to this at some point. But great choices, Sean.
Yes, and absolutely great idea with the segment. So, folks, want to thank you all once again for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
And now, it's time for What's on Tap, brought to you by RJ Daniels, American Bar and Grill.
Games coming up. The Islanders had the obviously 1-1 week that we were talking about previously, and they are going in to Colorado on Monday, I believe. And then you have you're laughing.
Where's the preparation for the thing?
The problem, Chris, is I'm gonna come
Monday.
I'm gonna come.
I don't always know.
No, full disclosure, the handwriting is awful. It looks like Monday.
The reason why I know it's Monday is that it's 3 and 4.
Well, that's why you're here.
Which hockey players, NHL players will tell you is the toughest.
But the truth is, if you're listening to this program to get the scheduling for the Islanders, you have a problem.
Nobody needs us to tell. They can tell us when the schedule is.
Exactly. So tomorrow, the Islanders go into Monday. The Islanders go into Colorado to face the defending Stanley Cup champions. Obviously a tough game. We've seen what they've done against Vegas. We've seen what they've done against Boston. So maybe not the toughest game in the world for them. We'll see what happens. And then a big game on Thursday against the New York Strangers. Viewing party at Lost Farmer Brewing Company. We're going to have a great time that night. Definitely come out. It's going to be a blast. Invite your Stranger fan friends too if you want. I mean, you can mock them. You can bring them down. Maybe charge them double for the drinks and whatnot. But absolutely going to be a great time at Lost Farmer Brewing Company. And then they come back home to face the Florida Panthers on Friday. A little holiday special against the Florida Panthers. So, Chris, what say you about these games coming up on tap?
Well, I'm especially interested in our event on Thursday because I've been a guest at one or two of your live
you actually
shows,
have to stick around.
But I haven't co-hosted. So please join us. Please say hello. I will be grateful. It would be great to have a lot of Islander fans there and to talk also after the game as well. Colorado game, I think it's definitely a toss-up game, especially with Nathan out of the lineup. Down there's Dumas Pelech, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. And it doesn't look like he's at least going to be part of this part of the trip. Maybe he'll be back soon. But that's a pick'em game. And then the Rangers, I always feel like the road team has the edge lately in this series.
Sure. And the Islanders have done well in the Garden
Yeah,
lately.
but the Rangers have, they have started to find their game. I'm not totally a believer yet. Listen, they're a good team. They're in the mix as well, but they have started to find their game. But that's going to be a big one, though. Somebody's not going to have a great Christmas to lose a great team. And then
Florida, yeah.
Florida. But I don't know when we have a special midweek live show, do we look ahead or all segments out the window?
I suppose we will, yes, but just in tradition's sake, Florida is a game. But I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, Chris.
Again, the Panthers also. I feel like they're starting to find their game a little bit. Coach is figuring it out. I think that's going to be a challenge. The dreaded day after the Ranger game. So
yes, the post-Ranger hangover.
If you subscribe to what we talked about early in the show about how the Islanders continue to win the games when they really need to, perhaps it'll be a good night for the Islanders. But we'll see. We'll regroup on that Thursday.
We will indeed. So that'll do it for What's on Tap. Ed, I'm going to keep you working. Ed, Jay, how you guys doing over there, by the way?
Doing great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, having a good holiday season?
Yeah, well, you brought me a lovely gift.
Oh,
fisherman gear. Yeah, I don't fear the fishermen. I haven't. And
good for you.
I never will.
Okay.
So,
all right.
It's always good.
Okay. All right. How's the chat going? We got some questions lined up for Questions Brewing later?
We do.
Okay, very good.
We got Hero of the Week.
That's right. So why don't you cue the music? Let's do a little Hero of the Week. That's right, folks. When you hear the song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Half Price Hero, which this week is the White Whale, featuring chicken cutlet, gravy, onion rings, bacon, fresh mozzarella on a toasted garlic hero. That sounds delicious to me. Go to Blue Line Deli and Bagels, flagship deli in Huntington. Mention Hockey Night in New York to get half off the White Whale. So, Chris Botta, who is your hero of the week?
The reason why I'm on my phone is, and I didn't expect
Very
to
rude.
get an update on a Sunday or really any kind of an injury update from the team, which I get it. Your team doesn't owe anybody an update. You could see where I'm going for this.
Yes.
But I just wanted to make sure before I named Semyon Varlamov as my hero of the week, I just wanted to see if there was any news breaking. I do see that our friend Kevin Kurz, the brilliant writer for The Athletic, has got a thing about how Semyon's making the case for more playing time, and now his health is in question. But we don't know anything on that. Varlamov was a big part of that victory, at that not must win, but an important win against Las Vegas. So Semyon is my hero of the week. Brought to you by so-and-so who's got a special kind
By
of
so-and-so.
Well, it's the blue, yeah, you always have this sandwich rundown.
That's right.
So can you tell me about sandwich, or do I have to wait for your pick?
Either way, the White Whale. The White Whale, made by Blue Line Deli and Bagels.
No offense to our
Named-
friends at Blue Line. I was anxious to hear about what the sandwich is. That's all. Sorry.
That's hilarious. So my hero of the week is young up-and-comer, coming out of Bridgeport, filling in for injuries. Simon Holmstrom getting his first goal against the Vegas Golden Knights. And beyond that, he looks like he belongs. He's been playing well. He's been doing a lot of work that maybe goes unnoticed when you don't talk about points, goals and assists and all that. And he finally cashes in on a goal. And I think this is a guy for me who wasn't really on my radar. Like, I feel like if he was going to be a player for this team, it was kind of gravy. It was a bonus, And the fact that he's been called up and he's shown his worth, I'm very interested to see what his long-term future is for this team and what it might mean for short-term for some other guys on this team that might be struggling.
The thing with early round draft picks, by the way, were you done with your thought?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. The thing with early round draft
I'm
picks
long-winded, Chris. I'm sorry.
That are forwards, for example, is that we just think, well, they have to be on one of the top two lines.
Right.
And if they're not on one of the top two lines, then they're not worth talking about, or they're not NHL players. I think he's not a first or second line player. I don't think he ever will be. Give him some time. Okay, that's just what I think, right?
Sure.
But that doesn't mean he can't be a very useful NHL player. And I've kind of referred to this before. He just feels like a Lou Lamoriello Devil / Islander. Like he just, I like him out there. I think the goal helps. Do I think he's going to get many more? No, but I think the goal also helps. I saw his interview after the game. There's just a confidence that comes with it and acceptance when that guy, and I think it was Parisi, it seems like it's always Parisi, grabs
Raved about him.
Yeah, and I mean also, but he grabs that puck, and that just means so much to these guys. I saw it a lot of times because we had a lot of people come through our system when I was there, and it is a confidence booster. So good for Holmstrom. We're getting close to the point where he's a guy who could be an everyday New York Islander. He's just not going to be where you would have liked to have him to be, but he could be very valuable for this team.
There you have it. So there's your heroes of the week. Simon Holmstrom, Semyon Varlamov. Waiting to hear what's happening with the Varlamov injury. Hopefully we get some updates on that eventually. But again, visit the Blue Line Deli and Bagels flagship location in Huntington. Mention Hockey Night New York and get half off the white whale. So there's the sandwich again, Chris, if you were curious.
I'm always excited to hear what the sandwich is, and particularly this time. The next thing to look for when it comes to Varlamov will be a tweet tomorrow from the team or Kevin or Andrew or Stefan that talks about whether Corey Schneider had to meet the team in Colorado.
Very interesting. We'll see what happens with that. And now we will move on to my favorite segment of the show. What questions brewing?
Close.
It's time for Questions Brewing.
Close one.
Brought to you by
And you
Lost
don't know.
Farmer Brewing Company.
That's right, folks. It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company. And we happen to have some wonderful Lost Farmer selections here. Here's the Top Con IPA that I'm going to open up right now and sample as we do this segment. Ed, Jay.
Cheers to that.
How are we doing in the chat?
Ever active as always.
What do we got?
We'll start off with T-Boyle 13. Regular here at Hockey Night New York.
Yes, sir. What's up, Tom?
Do you see Lou making a trade before the freeze at midnight tomorrow?
No.
It's always Lou.
No. Stop asking. No, Tom, always appreciate the questions. I don't think Lou's in any rush. He's already said so himself. It's not time to panic. It's not time to bring in a guy because they had a rough go here over the last couple of weeks. Lou's going to make a trade when the time is right, Chris. You can.
Yeah, this is just to clarify, too. This is just a holiday freeze, and what it is. It's to be respectful of players and their families. So that's why a deal has to get done now, and then it picks up again after the holidays are over. And separate from Lou, who I don't believe is going to be making a trade in the next 24 hours, it's a good possibility there won't be any. And part of it is also that the teams themselves, they have needs, but they could be met in a couple of weeks. You're going to bring over a player on December 20th and have him leave his family. They all play games around the 22nd, 23rd, and 26th. Usually, I believe that's exactly what the Islanders are doing. They get the Rangers, they get Florida, and they almost always play on the 26th. So nobody wants to be bothered with that. You don't want to bother the Joanne Hollowers of the league or these players' families and uproot them. So it's just like we can't. The idea behind this is we're not going to do this and ruin anybody's thing. And I don't see anybody doing that tomorrow unless it's something where a team is really shorthanded and needs a player.
Okay, there you have it. So Ed, what do you got next?
Moving on to Mike, 4652 Co.
What's up, Mike?
How we doing? Thoughts on Lou claiming Craig Smith from waivers from Boston, right?
Is that right? I didn't even know he made a claim.
No, you're asking, did he or
will he? Should he?
Yeah, we got to be careful.
I think
with these. I'm not sure.
How about Lou claiming Craig Smith?
Oh, so he probably wants to know if the Islanders should perhaps claim him. I'm going to say he probably won't.
He's making it seem like he claimed him already.
Well, perhaps Mike can clarify that in the chat, but I'm going to answer it as
Craig Smith went on waivers today. So did Austin Zarnik.
Austin Danger Zarnik? Yeah. Again. All right.
Soshnikov is on waivers for the purposes of contract termination.
There you have it. Yeah, I saw some rumblings that Stefan Rosner was talking about it from NY Hockey Now, saying that maybe Shesterkin is going to go, not Shesterkin, Soshnikov is going to potentially go back to the KHL. That makes sense to me. If he's not going to play for the Isles, and he probably wasn't interested in playing in Bridgeport, so that makes sense. But Yeah, I don't think Lou's going to make any waiver claims. I don't think they need to. They're not. That's not where they're
You
at.
generally have to be sure when you pick somebody up that they're going to then play for you because you're taking on a contract, you're taking on a roster spot. I wouldn't think this would happen. Craig's on a 3-year, $9 million deal. You just better be sure he's going to play for you. And I don't think this is the case. The only wild card that happens here is if you have some real advocates in the front office. So whether it's a Kenny Morrow, Chris Lamorello, could even be, the 8th guy on the pro scouting staff. If somebody just says, guys, I really, really believe in this person, take the shot. Like if somebody's willing to go that far out on a limb, and scouts usually are, and they are if they're really sure. So that sometimes you'll see the occasional pickup, and it's a surprise. And that's just because there's some big advocates for that player. I don't have a strong opinion on whether I think he should on Craig Smith or whether he will. If I'm putting a little bit of money down, I would say no.
Yeah, I agree there. Ed, what do you got next?
Trotty at 19.
Hey.
Is Putin threatening Sorokin or his family? There's definitely something playing with his head lately.
Next question.
You got
Trotty, I love the color in the question. We talked about it last week, I think. Listen, even the best goalies in this league are human, and they're going to have some tough games. And I'm sure there's no outside stress weighing on Ilya Sorokin. He had a tough go. Unfortunately, he hasn't gotten maybe the results that he's wanted lately, but he's going to be fine. He is the number 1 goalie for the New York Islanders, and he's still going to be a Vezina candidate in the NHL, barring they don't completely fall off a cliff and miss the playoffs.
Well said.
Playing the Sean role here. I think we got time for 1, maybe 2 max left. What do you got?
Okay. On Dremy 13. Very, very good, Chris. What do you make of Ryan Pulock's play? His defensive game has been a disappointment, a big disappointment at that. Don't think he's played well this year.
Sean?
Stefan and I addressed this, I think, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Stefan and I addressed.
Oh, you jealous? Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
This guy talks about every other host on this.
Well, Chris, I mean, maybe if you were just here every week, then I would mention you, but it's very fickle here. So I work with what I have. So a couple of weeks ago, Stefan Rosner, great co-host of NYI Hockey Now, was with me, and we addressed that very thing. Ryan Pulock, a little quieter on the offensive side of things. I've determined that he cannot hit the broadside of a barn with his 100 plus mile an hour slap shot.
He's in a slump with his batting.
It's been a long slump. But he is still a very valuable defenseman to this team, and I think that's the bottom line. And as the great Stefan Rosner and myself mentioned, is that Noah Dobson has allowed Ryan Pulock to take a back seat, and he doesn't have to be that top flight or top offensive producing defenseman. And I'm not sure if that's what the question was getting at as far as his offensive production, but yes, he's been quieter, but I mean, I still love the Pulock duo when healthy, obviously. We're working through that right now. But Ryan Pulock is a great defenseman for the New York Islanders. He may not be the offensive dynamo that maybe we thought we were going to get coming up through the draft and coming up from Bridgeport and whatnot. But again, Noah Dobson allows him to not have to be that guy. And at the end of the day, Ryan Pulock is a steady, well-played defenseman, and you know what? Maybe the offense just isn't going to come, but he's a valuable piece of the
Pulock's journey has been very interesting to me because the Islanders drafted him. He had a really good junior career, showed some signs early Islander training camps, but I would hear from scouts, and it's just like something, but just take my word for it, I guess. And the question about Pulock was his pace of play, his not just his skating speed, but just would he be able to play. They thought he was an NHLer, but in terms of a first-round pick, the question would be, could he keep up the pace to be a top 2 pair player? And And then, like, he did. And then, he scored a lot of goals and he made a lot of money. And now he feels like he's had a setback.
Right.
By no means am I concerned about him. He's very much in the prime of his career. I think he's a good NHL player.
Yeah.
But I just raise that issue because he is somebody who defied the skeptics in a big way to emerge as a bona fide top 2 pair guy, and now he's taking he's had some bumps along the way.
I remember the 5 seconds that he was behind Griffin Reinhart in the Islanders prospect depth chart. Again, lasted 5 seconds, and we know the rest of history with that. But yeah, look, he's a good defenseman. He's a solid defenseman for this team, and a top pairing guy with Adam Pelech, even if he doesn't bring the flair that he might have once had, or just most top, offensive defensemen bring. But I think he's still a great player for the New York Islanders, and he is what he is.
Okay.
One more.
I'll lump 2 in because they kind of both have to do with shootouts.
Sure.
So who are the first 3 Islanders players you put in a shootout? And do you see the NHL ever getting rid of the shootout?
I would like you to go first on this, Chris.
We don't mean this is
If you don't
an
mind.
all-time question. This is currently.
Yeah.
Barzal.
Okay.
I would always go with Wahlstrom.
Okay.
And if the answer to that is, well, he hasn't been that good lately, I mean, then have him practice it every freaking day. Because if you have that shot and you have those hands, it should. I know it doesn't always translate, but so he'd be there. And then I would say not Josh Bailey. There's a few guys who I would say not.
Non-answer.
Be my
You're missing a very.
So
the first guy that I would put on my list, you haven't named yet.
Go ahead.
Brock Nelson.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. I knew
Brock
I was
Nelson
missing somebody.
Has to be in that 3, and
Has he always been? Is he always?
I mean,
well, they've done. That's right. They've only been in 1 this year, so we don't have
right.
Yeah, that's part of why I was drawing a blank.
It's fine. It's fine. We forgive you.
I was gonna say Franz, and that was Caposo.
Well, see, that's the thing. They haven't had a shootout specialist since Franz Nielsen, and not many teams can even make a claim to have a guy like that.
Correct.
But Brock Nelson is the top of my current list for the New York Islanders as far as the shootout goes. It's a shame that you even have to make these and even practice it. I hate the shootout, but it's there. But yes, Brock Nelson, I'm fine with Matt Barzal, and I do agree with Oliver Wahlstrom. He didn't get in there the other night. We saw Josh Bailey, and he was unsuccessful.
I don't understand. Yeah, that's my point. Is I don't understand going with Josh. No offense, Josh over somebody with hands.
The only reason why I can see that Wahlstrom didn't get into that shootout that night was because the coaching staff isn't confident enough in him yet. Like, why else? Because he's the only other real trigger man outside of Brock Nelson. I mean, can somebody make an argument for Kyle Palmieri or Zach Parise? Sure. Okay, fine. But if you're really having a conversation on whether Palmieri or Parise should be in your top 3 for a shootout, that means that you really don't have the guns for a shootout to begin with. And I think that's where the Islanders are. Right. They really don't have shootout specialists, but Brock Nelson's my number 1. Matt Barzal, and I guess when Lambert's comfortable with it, Oliver Wahlstrom, because we know he has the shot.
Yeah. The other night, Barzal scored in the shootout as he's about to get the puck. Butch Goring, I always have a Butch Goring reference every show now, said he's got to come in with speed.
Do you owe him money?
he's got no, this was an interesting one. This isn't a criticism, because Butch believes that you should come in with speed and make a move and not get in too close to the goalie. And Barzal didn't come in with speed and then scored. So you just never know.
Can I actually comment on Butch Goring's? Did you watch the Arizona game?
Yeah.
Okay. He was not impressed with the Islanders from start to finish in that game.
Yeah, he has a good feel for that.
Yeah, and he basically the entire night was just kind of, I'm not saying shitting on the Islanders, but as close to it as possible.
He's not somebody who's got a shit on it, but sometimes by his.
But
by
he
the
was
things
just not impressed. Like
Yeah.
almost
frustrated.
like like borderline sarcastic comments
I think,
about the way they played their game
I
that
think he
night.
had a sense that their head was not in the
Yeah.
game and they were in danger, and he wound up being right. So full marks. For
Yeah,
that.
I agree. It was just a very rare night because Butch is usually generally optimistic about the New York Islanders.
But here's another thing. When it comes to the broadcast, and by the way, I love all of them, and including the people who work behind the scenes and who happen to be personal friends of mine in some cases, okay? What else? I don't know for sure on the Arizona game because I didn't look back on it, but what was unique about yesterday's broadcast that would surprise you now at this stage in late 2022?
You tell me.
Brendan and Butch were not there.
Okay, yes, that is unique.
They and the reason why it was clear, and I think this affects the broadcast and could maybe even like make you wonder why if Butch sounded a little different or whatever. But they did that in the studio somewhere. I would assume they did it at the MSG studios.
Sure.
That's where. So during the pandemic, they started getting. You actually
Right.
would see Joe.
Yes.
They reveled in it because it was the safe thing to do, and announcers.
Right.
But now some networks are still using it either as a way to save money, save on travel, maybe Brendan's schedule. I mean, one night he's in Calgary for TNT, and next
Right.
show he's at UBS.
Right.
You know, pace yourself, buddy. You got a long career ahead of you. I know it's a great kid.
Now we're
and you're
shitting on
doing
Brendan.
Yeah, exactly. No, what I'm saying, I know I'm more out of concern. There's going to be a lot of games in this guy's future. So anyway, they weren't there. And the reason, so next time to look for this, you never saw them on camera last night.
Yeah.
And you could
okay,
also,
yeah.
once you realize it, if you listen, you realize they're in Vegas where there's this great ambiance to the game where it's loud and like that. And the game just, it felt like a pandemic broadcast. So that was the case there. Once again, on a tangent, once again, I go overtime. I bring you longer than I plan on. But Butch and
Chris,
Brendan.
the tangents are why we're here.
Exactly. Butch and Brendan weren't there, and I would hope it's for a good reason. I would hope it's not for a cost savings reason, because Islander fans deserve the best. I like MSG networks. I don't have this anti-MSG thing. I also was employed by them for 2 of my 57 years on life, only 2, but they were good to me. But
Full disclosure.
so yeah, I just want because I get that sometimes. Oh, you work there, yeah. I don't know why they wouldn't be at these places. I don't think they were at Mullet either, because why would you be in Mullet and then not go to Vegas, which isn't far away? And these are 2 places with really unique ambiance. Go ahead.
No, that actually makes sense. I could see why Butch was so unhappy because they didn't send him to Arizona and Vegas. I would be pissed too if they didn't send me to Vegas.
I just know they weren't in Vegas. I unfortunately wasn't able to look back on the Arizona game, which I saw. So, but I would think so. But that's just odd to me. Islander fans deserve better. There might be a good reason for it, and I want to give all the benefit of the doubt. They should maybe share that reason why with a Neil Best at Newsday or an Andrew Marchand or even on Twitter. But our announcers, Islander announcers who were so great and beloved, and Brendan and Butchie should be there at these road games.
Fair play. Curious to see why that is the case.
Is somebody responding? Or?
Mike said tangent night in New York.
That's okay.
I think nobody in chat has any insight about that broadcast, about the broadcasters not being there, do they? I'm just because it's possible they might know more than we do.
Not
Very possible.
No.
Okay.
No,
But they
that's
weren't
fine.
there.
That's okay. We tried. It's okay. It's fine.
So you better close the show out.
Yeah, that's gonna do it. That's gonna do it for questions, Bruin
more
folks.
tangents.
We appreciate you guys, all the questions, all the chatter, of course. Thank you so much for tuning in live. So Ed, cue that music, please. All right, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers. I want to send a big thanks to Chris Botter for sitting next to me and suffering through this show with me. Hockey Night in New York, no question about it.
We'll get Stefan back here sometime.
Thank God. And a huge thanks to our sponsors, Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Visit them at bluelinedeli.com to sample all their great offerings. Get a taste of the menu. And, of course, a huge thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company at 63A.
That's what the reading says? Get a taste of their menu?
Jesus
You can't read
Christ.
your own handwriting.
Chris, I can't wait till it's over. And a huge thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Check out lostfarmerbrewing.com to get a sample of their menu as well. And a huge thanks to our brand new sponsor, Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Check out mainstboardgamecafe.com. And of course, follow us at Hockey Night NY at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're super bored, Chris, where can we find you on Twitter?
Never mind that. Come on out Thursday to Lost Farmer Brewery.
That's right.
I'm really excited about that. I really hope a lot of people that can are able to join.
Yes, absolutely. No question about it. Follow Chris at Chris Botta NHL, but more importantly, come down. Follow us at Mineola, Lost Farm Brewing Company. It's going to be a great time on Thursday night. Bring your Ranger fan friends. It's going to be a great time. Awesome selections on the taps. It's going to be phenomenal. 50-50 raffle, lots of prizes, lots of giveaways, a lot of fun time. Ed, you going to be there? You come down?
Of course.
Awesome. Ed's going to be there. So, I mean, what better reason to come down to Lost Farmer Brewing Company than for Ed? So follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. And please, if you dig what we're doing here, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. We're having a lot of fun here at Hockey Night New York. We're going to have more great guests. Check us out for Islander Hockey. Have a great night.
Quick disclaimer: I denounce Eds of the Rangers or whatever those guys were. All the Eds.
Oh right,
Ranger
yeah,
Eds.
Ranger said, yeah,
Forget those guys.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, it's fine.
Denounce them.
Play the song again. Well, for Chris Botta, I'm Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. Have a great rest of your night.